Welcome to Maine Public News Connect, original news stories from Maine Public Radio, airing weekly in Spanish, French, Portuguese, Somali, and English. I'm your host, Ari Snider. Today is Friday, March 17th, and here are the week's top stories. The Maine legislature is considering a bill that would remove immigration status as a barrier to accessing Maine Care, the state's subsidized health insurance program. One Iraqi man who lives in Biddeford said getting access to Maine Care would make a huge impact on his life, allowing him to get eye surgery and helping him pay for medication. Advocacy groups and doctors say the bill would relieve pressure on the medical system and improve public health, but some Republicans in the state legislature opposed the measure, saying it would increase the size of state government. The Health and Human Services Committee will hold a hearing on the proposed legislation on March 28th. Public comment can be given in person or by Zoom. Senator Susan Collins ignited debate over immigration policy last week when she sent a letter to the federal government asking it to slow the arrival of asylum seekers to Maine. Collins, a Republican, said she had heard from local officials in Portland that the city was struggling to support and find housing for hundreds of new immigrants. But the Immigrant Legal Advocacy Project condemned the letter, saying that Collins' request would undermine international treaty obligations and impose more barriers on people seeking safety in the United States. ILAP and other groups instead urged Collins to focus on fixing the country's immigration system and investing in affordable housing for all groups of people. Maine lawmakers this week heard hours of testimony on a bill that would reestablish parole in the state. Maine became the first state in the nation to abolish parole in 1976, but more than 45 years later, criminal justice reform advocates say it is time for Maine to reverse course and join the 34 other states that have some form of parole. Criminal justice reform advocates said reinstating parole would help create structure, accountability, and incentives to help incarcerated individuals rebuild their lives. But Governor Janet Mills and some groups that advocate for crime victims oppose the bill, saying parole hearings can reopen wounds for victims. A group representing local governments in the Portland area is taking the first steps in creating a new transitional housing facility in the region. The Greater Portland Council of Governments is working with other groups to renovate an empty warehouse in Portland to eventually house up to 75 people. The facility is expected to open before next winter and would initially focus on providing transitional housing to recently arrived asylum seekers, but could eventually provide shelter to anyone who needs it. Portland is currently struggling to provide housing for hundreds of asylum seekers who have arrived in the city since January, and city officials say creating more transitional housing is a key part of the solution. This has been Maine Public News Connect. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Maine Public News Connect partners with wonderful groups across Maine committed to providing access to important news and information for all. We'd especially like to recognize the Maine Immigrants Rights Coalition, PresentMaine, the Congolese and Angolan communities of Maine, Amjambo Africa, Catholic Charities of Maine, the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center, Portland Adult Education, the Portland Office of Economic Opportunity, ProsperityME, the Maine Health Access Foundation, and the Maine Humanities Council for their support and efforts. Maine Public News Connect is made possible by individual sponsors, businesses, and foundations from across Maine, and especially by Coastal Enterprises, Seaport Credit Union, Hannaford Supermarkets, IDEX, Koo and Patricia Ewan, Maine Health Access Foundation, Maine State Housing Authority, and the Sam L. Cohen Foundation. Thank you for your significant support. Maine Public News Connect is made possible by Koo and Patricia Ewan, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities.
Juntos. Ensemble.
Warajir.
Junto.
Seaport Credit Union. Together.
At Maine Housing, we know an affordable home is key. Our First Home Loan program offers Mainers low interest rates and down payment assistance on multi-unit properties. Learn more at mainehousing.org.
Hannaford Supermarkets, celebrating the diversity of its employees, customers, and communities, and committed to fostering a welcoming environment. Together, they're greater than groceries. Learn more at hannaford.com.
If you would like to support this project, please contact Corey Morrissey at 207-232-0241.